And now to the economy, where the fight over the debt ceiling is adding to concerns about the economy, which now appears to be slowing after a year of interest rate hikes by the Fed to cool inflation. In preliminary data, the GDP in the first 3 months of this year was up by just 1.1%, nearly half of what some economists had been expecting, and down from 2.6% at the end of last year. This as the president and Speaker McCarthy are in a standoff over raising the debt ceiling. House-passed bill includes big spending cuts on social programs, which has been flatly rejected by the White House. And now some Democrats are getting nervous about the debt ceiling stalemate, with Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar saying that the two sides need to negotiate. Joining me now, NBC News White House correspondent Mike Memoli and Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. So, Mike, is there any change, any give inside what the White House is thinking now that Speaker McCarthy has frankly proved that he can squeak through with 217 votes and get essentially a budget bill passed?
That's right. Andrea, for the moment, the White House says they haven't changed their position, which is that the U.S. is not a deadbeat nation. We pay our bills, and that the debt ceiling should be clean, non-negotiable with Republicans.
As it always has been.
As it always has.
For decades, bipartisanship.
But you really can't, I think, overstate how much changed politically this week in terms of this argument by Speaker McCarthy. It's a big win for him, being able to actually get the votes to pass something in the House, because the White House really had thought that on the politics and on the policy that position was tenable, because it really has felt like they made a gamble that McCarthy would never be able to pass anything and that they could point to the dysfunction in the House. We saw it in the speakership vote, right, as really what the barrier was. So now this has changed. And I think given what we've seen from President Biden over the years, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, it was then Vice President Biden in the thick of the negotiations with Republicans. This argument that he's not even going to sit down with Speaker McCarthy is not a tenable position. You're starting to see some fracturing in Democrats in that notion. Certainly people like Joe Manchin, who are going to be on the ballot next year, want to see that meeting. And so even as the White House insists their position has not changed, there is a meeting happening at the White House today. They are sort of reevaluating their strategy. And so if there is a change, a shift in tone, we are going to pick up on it, I think, soon enough.
And we're seeing with Joe Manchin that he now feels more vulnerable, given the overwhelming, support that Donald Trump had in his state, and the fact that he's now getting a challenge from Jim Justice, the governor. So Joe Manchin says that they should negotiate. The speaker is clearly pointing to that as well as a weakness on the Democratic side. Ryan, what are you hearing up there? I ran into two members last night, both Democrats, one from Virginia, one from Pennsylvania, both saying they've got to start talking.
It does seem, at least there's a bit of a groundswell with rank and file members of the Democratic Party, Andrea, that there needs to be some break of this logjam. But leadership is still pretty much all in lockstep with the president. At least publicly, they appear to be taking President Biden's lead in terms of holding firm on this idea that the only thing they'll agree to is a clean debt ceiling package. Listen to what Hakeem Jeffries, a Democratic leader in the House, told us earlier today.
House Democrats worked with former President Trump 3 times to make sure we avoided a default and raised the debt ceiling. Without partisanship, without showmanship, without gamesmanship. And that's what the extreme MAGA Republicans should be doing right now. President Biden has produced a budget. House Republicans produced a ransom note.
I was in that press conference this morning with the leader. I think he said the same version of what you just heard there about 5 different times to the various questions he was asked about this. He's remarkably on message. But, Andrea, I think what's important to keep in mind here is that the one thing Congress really operates under is a deadline. And at this point, there isn't a firm deadline in place. And I think one of the most revealing things we heard from Hakeem Jeffries this morning was that he is waiting to see what the Treasury Department says next week about when they're going to run out of those extraordinary measures to continue to pay the country's bills. I think once we see a firm date, if it's sometime in the middle of June, that's when we'll likely see negotiations start to heat up. Because right now, there's no motivating factor here. Both sides are in a staring contest, and they're waiting to see which side blinks first.
And they may start getting some signals from Wall Street, Mike Memoli, where there's a lot of nervousness right now, and you see a difference in short and long-term rates, bond rates.
And ultimately, this is what it comes down to when you're president of the United States. The White House is confident. They said in 2011, Republicans did get, in terms of the public polling, a lot of the blame for that standoff, which ultimately was resolved. But there was a consequence to the economy of a downgrade of the nation's credit rating. And so that's another factor and pressure here that's going to be coming to the White House as we get closer to this deadline. We're going to hear from the Treasury Department soon on that. And I think, the view, though, ultimately from the White House is that what the Republicans did pass politically is going to be so problematic for their voters, for especially their swing district members in the election next year, that they actually did pick up some good political momentum from that this week. But if there is a default or if there is another downgrade, this is a president who knows the buck is going to stop with him. And so that's going to be weighing on them as we get closer.
Yeah, the downgrade is real money because that's higher money rates that have to be paid to borrow the money to keep the government running. And that just means shelling out more money, which takes away from regular programs.